Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Not Your Everyday MMA podcast. This is episode 5. My name's Alex Henry, and I'm with Tori Haverl. Listen, we got a lot to talk about in this podcast. Our last podcast, we talked about UFC 279.
The wrong UFC 279.
And great views. Appreciate all the views. Welcome to our new subscribers. But all of our predictions for the top 3 fights didn't happen.
Not even
So,
close. Yeah.
yeah, not even close. So we're going to talk about all the drama surrounding UFC 279, what we kind of thought about it, and then we'll be talking about Sandhagen's fight night versus Song Yadong. So stick around for that, and then we have our top 5 at the end. So Tori, I'm gonna throw it over to you because I remember I kind of broke the news to you off rip. I was like, Tori, Dana just got off live. We got a new set of fights. What was your initial reaction when you heard about this?
Well, when I first saw it, I hadn't been on my phone all day. I had been working and I hadn't checked. And so as far as I knew, Hamzat was still fighting Nate, whatever, the card was still the same. And you had texted me, and I was like, no joke, mouth on the floor. What the hell is happening? Because I kind of saw on Instagram for a second, but I was like, oh, haha, it's probably just like an account saying what if da da da. Oh no, it was very real. Um, it was insane. I'm kind of happy it turned out the way it did.
Same.
And I mean, overall, it was a great card. It was a very, very amazing card.
Yeah, I agree. I wouldn't have wanted the card any other way, for sure. So we'll get into the fights. We'll talk about the ones that changed. Daniel Rodriguez versus Jing Liang Li. That fight got switched around, and Lee was at a disadvantage weight wise by 10 pounds because Daniel Rodriguez was fighting for a catch weight. So that was interesting. And it was a really good fight. I mean, it's exactly what I would have thought it would have been, just pure
Yeah.
striking match.
Yes.
And with that being said, I thought Lee won. And not only
1000%.
that,
Yeah.
like he threw more strikes.
He did. Yeah, and I mean the second they stepped on the octagon, because I had to watch the fight later after I got home from work, so I was kind of behind on everything. But always make sure I always put my phone do not disturb, don't open any social media, so I make sure nothing is spoiled. But I got home and I was starting to watch his fight, and the second they stepped in, I'm like, what is going on? Leach looked
Yeah,
like he had cut weight. He looked like he went through the weight cutting process. They looked like two completely different weight classes, which they kind of were. And Daniel looked pudgy. I mean, I'm not saying like he's a pudgy guy, but I'm just saying he looks like healthy. He looks like he has some chunk, whereas Leach looks
sure.
like a thin noodle and just looks like he cut weight. And I'm like, how is this possible right now? And the Leach actually held on very good. I thought he put more output. Maybe the one thing that they could argue is that his strikes didn't have as much of an effect or as much
Right.
volume as D
Right.
Rod's, but I still thought he put out way more output than D Rod. And I thought for sure he was taking that fight by UD. And I was so excited. I was on the edge of my seat. And then they called D Rod's name. And I was like, oh, I was shocked.
Yeah, and it's always a big deal when Dana goes out of his way to mention that he disagrees. Because I'm sure Dana disagrees on a lot of fights, probably, but he'll go out of his way every now and then and say, "Yeah, I had it different than the judges did on my scorecard," and I felt bad. I felt bad for Lee
Oh,
just
horrible.
in general the whole week. This is old news, but bought a new suit, was ready for that co-main card, and then he gets
Yeah,
stuck fighting a guy that's way heavier than him that he didn't train for.
1000%. And I mean, he got robbed of a co-main spot against Tony Ferguson, the biggest fight of his career, probably other than the Hamzat fight. I don't know if that affected his pay. It might have. And
Mm-hmm.
also, it was really his week to shine. He's never been in a co-main event with a name this big, because at the time Hamzat's name wasn't as known as it is now. And it's sad to see. But I mean, he 1000% gained a lot more fans this weekend. People were by his side, they were defending him. But I'm also not downplaying D Rod. He also took the fight on short notice, was also preparing for a completely different opponent, one that he'd wanted to fight before but couldn't. So he also did what he had to do in the octagon. And also, good for him. He got the win, but I'm just going to have to disagree with the judges on this one.
Yeah, I'm 100% with you. Somebody else I kind of felt bad for. It's our actual co-main event. My boy Kevin Holland got stuck against Hamzat Chimaev in the co-main. and we saw a Darce choke, which is a pretty lethal submission. Uh, I Hamzat didn't get hit again. Another fight, Hamzat didn't get hit and just went straight for wrestling. He missed a shot. It's like he said Khabib wrestling who? Like he took chain wrestling to a whole
Yeah,
new level
1000%. Yeah.
and got the win. What do you have to make out of this fight?
I mean, now as an MMA fan, it's like losing respect for a fighter because before he was the bad guy, but it was almost kind of like he just talked like he still does. He speaks the truth. He literally dominates everyone. But as an MMA fan, it's hard to respect a fighter when first of all they miss weight by that much and the way he acted towards it.
Yeah, so
And
let's talk about that. So
yeah.
what do you think about him coming in overweight? You know, he came in 8.5 pounds over. He gets a pound allowance, 7.5 pounds, and then doctors tell him after that he can't cut weight anymore. In my opinion, you know, if you're showing up that much overweight, I don't think you were ever going to be able to cut that weight to begin with. That's a lot of weight to cut.
Oh,
You know, people who want to say the doctors didn't let it. Sure, they didn't. I don't blame them. I wouldn't have let him either because that's an unhealthy amount of weight to try to cut in that short of time. And that wasn't the reason, but that's my reason
yeah.
why I wouldn't. And
Yeah.
I'm very upset about the weight. You know, I wrestled 12 years, never missed weight, and I cut,
Yeah.
never missed weight. So it's like, you know,
If you're missing weight by that much, you have to not be doing something. Something's missing within your camp, especially if you've made the weight before and you've successfully made it over and over. That's just ridiculous coming in 8 pounds over. I mean, come on, you obviously weren't doing something correct in your camp before prior to fight week.
right. I had this conversation with a friend where he said, "Yo, yeah, you know, Hamzat's got to go up weight, got to go up weight," and I said, "I mean, sure, that's an option, but I don't know if his problem was that he struggled to make weight. More so, his problem was he didn't try to make weight because obviously he is a little bigger for his weight class at 170, but it's helped him. And he's really never struggled to make weight in the past, at least that much
Yeah.
over. So, did he struggle to make weight? Does he struggle to make weight and he has to bump up? Or was he just lazy? Oh, I got Nate Diaz.
Yeah.
I'll make weight. I'll be fine. I don't know. But either way, what you were getting at is how he portrayed himself as the villain too made it so much worse, you know, flaking off the
1000%.
media, talking mad trash that just didn't need to happen. You know, Kevin Holland was so respectful and he's just
Yeah.
dogging everybody.
Yeah. And I mean, the real question right now is does he go to middleweight and does he stay there? Will he have success there, as much success as he does at welterweight? And it's just how will he play out in the future? Is he gaining more fans? Is he losing them? Or is he earning the respect or losing the respect? Right now, I truly believe he's losing the respect of the people. I mean, but then again, he comes out and he defends himself. He comes out on Saturday night and performs the way he does.
Sure.
It's just it's like the evil Habib. It's like Angel Habib, evil Habib, just on your shoulder. It's so hard to like this guy, but it's so hard to almost disrespect him just because of how dominant he is in MMA. So it's like a tough situation for fans because they're like, do we love him? Do we hate him? Do we want to see more of him? Blah blah blah. Like it's a confusing situation to be in kind of for the MMA community. And what does Dana White do? Does he punish him? Like it's there's a lot of questions with this.
Yeah, there's a lot. You know, to answer your first one, does he move up to middleweight? Like, if he moves up, he's got to wait for the rematch with Edwards and Usman before he fights. That might not happen
Yeah.
till January, is what I'm hearing. And that's like even kind of early, I think. So I'm thinking more towards February that fight might happen, but who am I to say, right? But he's gonna have to wait, right? And he's ready to fight tomorrow if he needs to.
Yeah. Not one
Um,
scratch, not one punch.
right.
Yeah.
So middleweight, he's got to wait to see how Pereira Adesanya falls out, you know, and you know, obviously Pereira wins, he's gonna get his rematch. So he's kind of in a sticky situation where he's kind of stuck either way. It's just who does he want to prove himself against? And I think the fight to make is him and Colby. And finally, the
1000%.
MMA media world agrees with me. I've been saying this before his fight with Diaz even got booked, I was saying he
Yeah.
should fight Colby. And
Yeah.
now it's hopefully will happen. Or if he went to middleweight, I think the fight for him is Robert Whitaker. But what does Hamzat do? He goes out on media and he says, I like Robert Whitaker. I would never want to fight Robert Whitaker because he's a nice guy to me. So it makes me feel like
Maybe he's a
if
little maybe he's a little scared to go up and fight Robert.
I think he's a little scared. I think if
Hamzat's
he
not that type of person. Just be like, I'm gonna step away for a little bit because someone's too nice for me. Get out of here with that BS. No, it's because you know that he could bring some tough competition. I'm not even saying if it is BS, but Hamzat is that type of person too. I kill everybody, right?
right.
And so why not go up for the challenge if you say this? But no, someone's too nice, so you don't want to face the number one contender in the division. I don't
Yeah,
know.
I couldn't tell you. I think it's a lot of that. I think he definitely probably is a little worried, and I think he wants a title shot right away. I think he just
Which
if
I
he's
don't
gonna
think he
fight
deserves.
if he's gonna go up to middleweight, he wants a middleweight title right away. If he's staying at welterweight, he wants a welterweight title right away. Whether I don't think he deserves it yet either, but whether you think he deserves it or not, it's like
Yeah, it's almost a
he
guarantee.
that's what he wants, and that's what he's probably gonna get. He didn't
Yeah,
make weight, so I don't think it's fair. And he really hasn't proved he proved himself against a Kevin Holland who didn't train for him, a
yeah,
Gilbert Burns who's on the back end of his career, and that's pretty much it.
yeah. And I mean, Gilbert Burns even some people argue that Gilbert won that fight. That was not an easy win for Hamzat whatsoever. I mean, he fully got tested. And the thing is, if that was 5 rounds, I would have Burns just because of his cardio, because we don't know Hamzat's cardio. We don't know how well it is. And I just, it's such a hard situation because what does he do? And I want to hear your thoughts on this. His coach said that Hamzat likes going down to 170. He just doesn't like cutting the weight. Well, a lot of fighters don't like cutting the weight. I mean, it's part of the sport. It's part of MMA. That's what happens. So, what do you think about him saying that?
Yeah, even Sean O'Malley said that he's going to that he was gonna go to featherweight because he was tired of being a bantamweight, right? Like it's funny, it's really up to the fighter. So
It really
why do
is.
fighters cut weight? That's the question you have to ask. The main reason fighters cut weight is so they can be as big as they can compared to their competition. So you want to be, if you're naturally, a light heavyweight walking around not training, you want to try to get yourself to middleweight or welterweight so you're not, just an average Joe at light heavyweight fighting guys who were heavyweights that cut down to light heavyweight.
Yeah.
So it's really up to Hamza. And he could Volkanovski, for example, has proven himself a worthy featherweight. He's always made the weight. He's defending his belt. So if he wanted to bump up to lightweight and fight for another belt, that's cool. But like Hamzat, bro, stick in a spot and stay there for a bit, dude. Like
Yeah. Prove yourself
does
in that division.
yeah, and he probably did struggle to make weight, honestly. But I it's always like this thing too. And Hamzat's a wrestler, so he should know how to make weight. But a lot of the times, the wrestlers will kind of take a little longer, maybe a week out of the fight to cut their weight good. Whereas guys who have just kind of trained MMA or striking, they have to cut weight as soon as camp starts. I don't know what Hamzat's deal was, but coming in 8 pounds over, it's unacceptable. So, I don't know where he goes, but also the accountability that nobody is taking is ridiculous. Hamzat's not taking any accountability, and his
Yes.
coaches won't take any accountability either. I mean,
Even Dana White's almost like
he doesn't
Dana
care.
White is, yeah. So that's what I was actually going to ask you is, do you think his pay should have been affected by this?
Yes,
Yes. Okay.
yes,
Yeah. It's he met 6 fighters set to fight a fight that they were training for a camp, and then switches it all up because of one guy. Cancels a whole press conference and Li Jing-Su because of one guy. It's just
right.
I think the pay should have been docked. It's most likely not. I mean, he definitely would have gotten performance of the night if it wasn't for the weight miss, but I'm not even sure if it did. But I 1000% think there should have been a cut in the pay.
Yeah, I agree, and it's kind of sickening. It kind of makes me
Yeah.
a little upset. I'm not gonna lie. In case you can't tell my passion. And like
Yeah.
even Charles, for example, his contract, you don't make weight, you're the champ. You gotta
You're
put up
out.
that belt. The champ has a name and his name's Charles Oliveira.
Yeah.
No, not really,
Yeah.
because he didn't make weight. So he's got to be Islam if he wants the belt. So you can think about it however you want. But at the end of the day, weight does matter. And a lot of newer MMA fans are the ones that are upset about it. And then they're like, oh, all these old MMA fans, why do they care about weight so much? Because it's very important to the sport.
It's a part of the foundation of the sport. I
Yes.
mean, literally.
If there is no weight classes and there is no discipline or standard to make your weight, then it would be a very different sport we're watching. So I
There's
mean, I
just
could
Francis
talk.
Ngannou on the top of everyone if there's no weight classes. There's just this
Right,
man like kickboxing everyone.
right, and
Yeah.
I could talk about weight all day, and especially with the Hamzat situation. But I mean, in terms of Hamzat's career, I don't know where he's going.
He'll find success either way.
He's going
I
to be
mean,
good, and he's going to be good
yeah.
for a long time. It's what's going to happen. I don't see him losing anytime soon, and that worries me, especially if he does want to come fight my boy Izzy,
Yeah.
because I mean that's it. It's a hard fight for Izzy. That's a hard
Yes.
fight for Izzy. If that's what happens. But on a better, lighter note, the main event, the fight that should have happened, the fight that should have been booked.
Yes.
Tony Ferguson got to fight Nate Diaz. Tori, I'll just throw it over to you right away. What did you make about this fight?
I didn't really make much of this fight, to be honest. It was one of the most confusing fights I have ever seen in my life. I mean, you just had two guys like kind of messing around in there. I mean, it was an awesome fight. It was something I wanted to see, but something I wanted to see a couple years earlier. I had mentioned this to you before. For me, it was almost a little uncomfortable to watch. Not as much Nate Diaz, but Tony looked awful, completely awful this fight. He looked old and he looked worn down. And people were saying in the press week that he looked great. He looks like the old Tony. Yeah, that's what we've been saying for the past 4 fights, 4 or 5 fights. I mean, it was sad. Okay, this is no disrespect to Nate Diaz whatsoever at all. But if Tony gets submitted and beat by Nate Diaz decisively, there is absolutely no way he can compete with the top of the division in any weight class.
It's a great point.
I mean, he's like, well, I learned a lot from this fight. Yeah, you can learn a lot, but your body's learning less. Like you're getting beat, and it gets to a point where, like we had mentioned this before in the first podcast, and this was your thing. You said you want to retire from the sport. You don't want the sport to retire you, and that's what we're seeing right now with Tony Ferguson, and it's sad. But on the happy note, Nate Diaz got a submission win in the fourth round at 209. How insane was that? I mean, I was alone in my room and I was like, no way. Like, I was freaking out. I mean, Nate Diaz, what an icon. That man just doesn't care. And I love it. I absolutely love that he just doesn't care. What did you think of this fight?
I feel like the MMA gods have been so mean to Nate Diaz. They've hated him. They've thrown everything they could at Nate Diaz,
Yeah.
and they finally said, "You know what, Nate? I'm gonna give you one. Let's
Well,
give you one, Nate."
yeah.
And they gave him one in tenfold, man. They said, "You know what? You don't gotta fight Hamzat. Go fight Tony. And by the way, kill him. Make him look
Yeah.
silly." And that's what they did, man. And Tony looked great. Onto your or Nate looked great. Onto your Tony point though, Tony did not look good. And it's not even like he was out of shape, which he was, but like his striking, he's just like,
Overshooting every shot.
what is he? I don't know what his strikes
Yeah.
were.
And turning his back countless amount of times per round.
What's he doing? Well, yeah, honestly, what was he doing? And like, even when his coaches were talking to him, they're like telling him things that a coach should never have to tell their fighter in between rounds in a UFC fight, like
Yeah, at
ever.
this level of
And I'm
competition.
like, Tony, bro, you were at one time thought that you might end up being one of the best. And like, if you're seeing how you are right now, like I thought so at the end of the fight, they were so happy. And I'm like, you know what? Tony's gonna retire. Nate's done with his contract. It's gonna be a fairy tale ending.
Yeah.
Did Tony take off his gloves? No, he's picking up Joe Rogan. That's what happened. He wasn't retiring, and I was pretty upset about it because I would have loved to see Tony retire that night. That would have been a great send off. And
Yeah.
I don't know about Tony, but back to Nate. Nate's a dog, dude. He is.
Thousand
First
percent.
off, Nate fought great.
He
People.
did, yeah.
So I had never watched a Nate Diaz fight as a live fight as a newer fan to the sport, but I watched a lot of his fights before the fight,
Yeah.
and a lot of people are like, "Man, Nate looked bad. Nate looked bad." If you think Nate looked bad, that's how Nate's always fought.
1000%. Yeah.
Nate always has fought like that. That's how he fights. Maybe he was a little slower. Maybe
But
his
that just comes
cardio,
that comes with age. You
yeah,
know, that
maybe his cardio wasn't there as much. But besides that, how Nate strikes and how Nate just handled himself that whole fight, that's what you get from Nate every time. That's what you got
every
from Nate
single
when he
fight.
beat Connor. That's the
Yeah.
same Nate Diaz that beat Connor McGregor. Like
Yeah.
it's the same Nate
Yeah.
Diaz, just maybe a little slower, but yeah, it was I was very happy to see Nate walk off the way he
Yeah.
did. And hey, I wish him success in whatever he does.
Yeah. And the one thing I say that was kind of hurting me that Tony was having success in was those calf kicks. Wow. I don't even know if I can't even imagine being Nate. My eyes couldn't take any more of that. I was like, oh, because I played soccer for a while and I kind of know I have a very little taste of what that feels like. Doesn't feel great. And it's people were kind of being Nate up for that, but that's what Connor did in their fight. I mean, Nate has a wide boxing stance. It's what he does. And but that was kind of the one area Tony had a little success in. But something I do want to touch on is how big Tony's reactions were and how many times Nate pressured him against the fence and just started going after him. But I had some questions. I want to know your thoughts. I don't know if you noticed this, but a lot of times when Nate had clipped Tony, he just kind of walked back and let him come back to him. He didn't really go for the finish. I was a little confused over that, but I want to know what your thoughts were.
No, he definitely did. That's a good point. Honestly, I don't know what Diaz is doing. Diaz has never been known as a knockout guy, right? So
Yeah.
maybe it's he knows he's not gonna get the knockout, or maybe like
He seemed pretty close a couple times,
yeah.
though.
My thing is maybe he just wanted the fight to go a little longer. Maybe he just wanted to stick it in there with Tony in his last fight in the card a little longer, and he's like, I'm not gonna finish him yet. And then
That's what I was kind of thinking as I was watching because I'm like, there's so many opportunities. Like, there's like 5 times where Nate had him press against the fence about to finish, and then I was like biting my nails, and Nate just walked back, and I'm like, huh,
yeah.
okay.
The other thing was Nate really wasn't that tired. I mean, I'm not Nate Diaz, so I can't say, but he was playing. You think when he had his hands on the cage and he's doing the little side kick that he was
Yeah.
exhausted? No, he's
No.
trolling. He was playing with his food, right? Like that's all Nate was doing. So I agree. He probably could have ended it a little quicker, but I felt like he was just dragging it out. I don't know. That's my only answer. That's a good question though.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it was probably just Nate Diaz, but I was watching it. I was like, huh. But I 1000% agree. I mean, it's his last fight in the UFC. He probably wanted to let it go out a little bit. I was hoping, though, in the post fight interview, I was praying we get an iconic Nate quote. We kind of did, but kind of didn't. But I mean, I'm excited to see what he does in the future with Real Fight Inc. and maybe boxing Jake Paul. Who knows? I'm excited. Nate Diaz is going to get views. He's going to have fans no matter what or no matter how old he is.
Yeah, when he was talking about Hamzat in his post conference interview, that was the funniest thing to me. Where he's like, "You rookie, bleep 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 bleep
Yeah.
bleep bleep." I'm like, "Oh my gosh, dude, Nate is so funny." Like that was actually that made my night. 'Cause I watched it still. I couldn't sleep, so I
Yeah.
stayed up and watched the conference. But that was funny. That UFC 279 turned into what was going to be a pretty rough card to a very good card. Even the prelim fights, we don't have to
Yeah.
talk about it, but our boy Barnett, one of the
Yeah.
best heavyweight fights I've ever watched in my life, dude. He came
That,
back and got the win.
that man, those hammer fists. Imagine taking one of those to the skull and
I'm
that
good.
many. But even worse, imagine getting flipped on. Imagine being that octagon mat. Like I'm like, I just like that man. He's such an exciting new contender for the fans and for people to watch. And he's just such a cool dude. And he's very, very entertaining to watch. I mean, he's always a joy. And I'm happy he got the win. And I'm happy we got to see his post fight celebration.
Yeah, for sure. He should be moving his way up. There's not a lot of movement in heavyweight right now, so he should
Yeah.
try to capitalize on some opportunities. I would like to see him fight Derek Lewis. I think that'd
You
be a
know
good
what?
fight.
I think one more fight, I think he could get there.
No, I
I
mean
think he
he's
could
not
get
he's
there.
not even ready there. He's not even top 15, I don't think. But I think that'd be a
Yeah,
fire fight.
that would be. I
Because
mean, just imagine the
they're like
talk.
the same person.
Yeah, 1000%. I want to see Derek do one of those flips. I'm dying. That would be awesome.
I'd like
I
to
mean,
see
both of them
Derek
combined.
win or retire.
Yes, yes, that as well. Yeah, that as well. That's another. I didn't want to say that, but yeah, yeah. It's
Like,
sad. It's another
dude,
one of
if
those.
you're just gonna keep losing, can you just But it is definitely another one of those things. But anyway, let's talk about fight night. I always it's like they actually number these things, that's like Vegas
Sometimes I do, and
59,
sometimes I don't. This is UFC 60, I believe.
60.
Yes.
There you go. I'm just gonna call it fight night.
Yeah.
Sandhagen versus Yadong.
Yes.
Is that cool? That's
Yep.
cool. But yeah, let's get into that. We don't talk about the early prelims on our pay-per-view card podcast. These ones, we're not talking about prelims. We're not going to talk about prelims on a fight night card because those guys are like, they don't deserve. They're not worthy yet. They're not worthy for not your
Need to
everyday
prove
MMA.
themselves.
Now, obviously, if any of you guys would like to come on for an interview, please, because we're desperate to try to get interviews. But besides that,
Other than that,
yeah, we're not going to talk about your fights, but we will talk about the main card. Um, so let's do that. So first fight is Anthony Hernandez versus Mark Andre Barral or Barrial.
however,
Tori, what do you think about this fight?
I mean, so we have Hernandez. He's a good grappler. He's a good grappler. He has solid takedown defense. He's an okay striker, not the best. And then we have Barrial, who's very well rounded. He has very solid kickboxing, good takedowns, pretty okay Brazilian jiu-jitsu. When he is standing, he does tend to wear his opponents down on the feet. And yeah, he does have a 68% takedown average. So this fight, Hernandez, in order, if he wants to get the win, he's gonna have to keep it on the floor. He's gonna have to kind of go back to what he's used to. I just don't think he can stand with Barrial. And so that said, I'm gonna choose Barrial. I'll say by decision. I don't think Hernandez will be very successful taking him down or holding him there. And I just think Barrial, he's constantly pushing forward, constantly throwing at you. And I just think he's overall the more well-rounded fighter. And so that's gonna be my pick on the first fight of the main card.
Yeah, so Tori, I actually lied to you. So before the podcast, I told you I picked Mark, but I didn't. I read my notes wrong. So, great breakdown because I would agree with a lot of the things you said. So looking at Anthony, you mentioned he's a good grappler, and I think he has really, really good cardio. He's got that BJJ black belt. His
Yeah.
last fight, he had 8 takedowns and a very impressive 11 minutes of control time, and he he averages 5.39 takedowns a fight. He also isn't a bad striker, but he definitely likes his fights on the ground. Mark Andre, very good kickboxer, has good Brazilian jiu-jitsu, but overall just is a good MMA fighter, and I think that's
Yeah.
solid point. He has really good volume, averages 5.79 strikes per minute. He's coming off a submission win versus Jordan Wright, where he gave up 2 takedowns and then he got the submission.
Yeah.
Why is my Mac not charging? I don't know. I'm gonna charge my Mac real quick. I don't know if it's not plugged in or what, but I do not want it to die.
No problem. But I can keep discussing. But
No,
yeah,
just don't
I just
talk. I'll cut it out. I'll cut it out. I'll fix it. I'll fix it. Okay, cool,
no,
cool, cool.
no, like,
So I'm gonna have to come in here and edit. Ugh. So anyway, I'm not editing this. I'm keeping it in because I don't want to come back and edit it. That's how we roll. So Mark
yes.
Andre, uh, overall is a very good fighter,
Yeah.
and I is the better fighter here.
Mhm.
Uh, I've just seen him taken down too much recently in his last fights, and overall, I think Anthony's a better wrestler and a better jiu-jitsu guy. So I am going to take Hernandez here strictly off of that. But if this fight
Yeah.
does stay on the feet, I can see Mark getting a decision win, maybe even a knockout. And even if it does go to the ground, I'm not saying it's Hernandez's game. He's only because he does have that Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu in his background, but I am going to go Hernandez here.
Yeah, and this really is another one of those pick 'em fights. I mean, stays on the ground, I would probably go for Hernandez. If it stays on the feet, I'm gonna go with Barrial. But I mean, I think I'm gonna go with the underdog here. I think I'm gonna stay with Marc Andre. I don't know. I think he might be able to keep it standing, and if not, he does have some pretty solid jiu-jitsu. And we'll see if he can get back up and take the win. So we'll see.
Yeah, and I think you made a good point about kind of a pick 'em fight because a lot of these fights are kind of pick 'em fights, which
They
I love.
are.
So,
Yeah.
but yeah, it could definitely go either way. The next fight is Tanner Boser versus Rodrigo Nascimento Vieira.
Yes.
Think I pronounced those right. So Tori, give me your breakdown on this heavyweight bout.
Yeah, I mean, so we have Bozer. He's 28 and
Boser.
1, 11 and 1 knockouts, 2 and 0 submissions, 3 and 2 in his last 5 fights. And then we have Nascimento, who is 9 and 1, 3 and 1 with knockouts, 6 and 0 submissions, and 4 and 1 in his last 5 fights. So we have Bozer, who is such a fun guy, kind of to have in the heavyweight division. He has solid hands. He's a fun striker. He is smaller for the weight class, but he just is very athletic and he holds great power. And then we have Nascimento, who had a year layoff. He actually, and I believe I'm not sure if it was his last fight, but he was tested positive for, I wrote this down. I'm not for sure if I'm saying it right, but Ritalinic acid metabolite of the banned stimulant methanolphenate. I'm not even sure if I said that right, but it's illegal in MMA, and he got suspended for a while for it.
Can't do that.
Yeah, no, you cannot. And
Bad
so,
boy, Rodrigo.
yes, bad guy. I mean, there's just some stuff where I'm like, why do you do that? Anyways, you know you're gonna get in trouble. Moving on. Besides the bad stuff, he's a very aggressive striker. He's a good grappler. He has very solid submissions when he does get it to the ground. But he doesn't want to keep it standing because if he does keep it standing, he's going to get pulled into a dogfight that he might not necessarily want to be pulled into with Bozer. And then his path to victory is going to be the grappling. He is a forward grappler. He's constantly moving forward. And his advantage is going to be his grappling and his size difference because he is quite larger than Bozer. And then he was on Dana White Contender Series in 2019. That's how he kind of got his path into here. And yeah, I mean, this is kind of also another pick'em fight. I don't know. Bozer's only been finished once. Most of his losses are by decision. He did lose to Arlovsky by unanimous decision in 2020 and also lost to Cyril Gahn in 2019. So I think I might go Nascimento for this one. I think I might go Nascimento by submission, by finish. I'm gonna go second round finish. Not sure if it would be by knockout or if it's gonna be by submission, but I think I'm gonna go with the tested positive here for this
There you
one.
go. Yeah, you took a lot of my points, my key points in this fight, which is good. Good breakdown. And I think a good point you made is Rodrigo gets into these brawls and it's really never good for him. But the thing is, he likes to stay on the feet and he likes to stay aggressive on the feet. And that's kind of my issue, which if he does take this fight to the ground, it's going to be an easy dub for him. But Bozer's no joke. I mean, obviously, yes, like you said, he's fun, but he's a very powerful striker. And it's weird, too, because we've seen Tanner struggle with pressure before. But he did really good in his last fight. So, assuming that Nascimento wants to stay on the feet, because Tanner's key to success is to get a knockout. That's how he's going to win. So, assuming Tanner's looking for a knockout in a heavyweight fight and he gets into a brawl, Rodrigo, I think, will want to stay there. I don't see him level changing for a shot. I don't see him getting into a clinch and trying to take him down. So, I'm going to go Tanner, but this is a really hard pick for me again because I love my wrestlers, but what I don't love is my guys who like to get in the brawls and that's what they want to do. Kind of like Hamzat, where Hamzat in his fight with Gilbert Burns, obviously a really good wrestler, just take him to the ground, but he wanted to keep brawling with him. And it was fine,
Yeah.
but that was kind of his thing. So with that, I'm going to take Boser, but it's a really, really hard pick for me, and I'm not
Yeah.
confident on it. I don't know if we have any people who bet on fights. I wouldn't recommend betting on this fight or the last fight or any of
It's
these fights
hard.
because
Yeah.
I'm really not confident in a lot of my picks, but I am going to go with Boser here.
Yeah. I mean, you made a really good point about how Nascimento tends to not really use his ground game. I'm really hoping he does because that will 1000% be his key to success in this fight. I mean, he could get the finish easily on the ground. So hoping that he does take it to the ground. I'm still going to go him, but I'm 50-50 on this one. It's just,
Yeah, it's a coin flip.
it's another one. It really depends on how it goes.
Yeah, it really does. So on to the next fight, we have Andre Fili versus Bill Algeo. Cool name. Tori, give me your breakdown for this fight.
Alrighty. So, wait, we're doing really quick. We're doing Pfeiffer versus Ahmedovsky. I
Did I
believe.
pass? Did I? Yeah, that's what we're doing.
Oh, you're
So
all
we're gonna
good.
do Alan Ahmedovsky versus Joseph Piper. That's the next fight. Tori, give me a breakdown on that fight.
Perfect. We have Piper, who is 9-2-0, 6-1 with knockouts. Also, this fight is in the middleweight division. Forgot to mention that. Piper 9-2-0, 6-1 with knockouts, 2-1 with submissions, 3-2 in his last 5 fights. And then we have Ahmedovsky, who is 8-3, 8-1 with knockouts, 0-1 with submissions, 3-2 in his last fights. So Piper's last fight, he had a win by round 2 knockout against Ozzy Diaz on the Dana White Contender Series, and then Ahmedovsky's last fight, he has a loss to Joseph Holmes by round 1 submission. So this is going to be an absolute banger. I'm excited for this fight. This is going to be a striking match. We have Ahmedovsky, who was undefeated before the UFC. Now I believe he is on a 3-fight lose streak in the organization. So he was doing great, entered the UFC, not doing as good. But I mean, he's a powerful striker. He chases the knockout. He is kind of a fighter who is a knockout or nothing. So I believe
Right.
this fight is going to end in a finish, no matter who gets it. I think it's going to be an early finish. Um, Piper, very, very powerful, uses pressure to kind of break his opponents. He is solid takedown, solid ground game. Just such a heavy, heavy hitter. And he was also in the Dana White Contender Series, and he's another person that looks for a finish. So I'm gonna go with Piper. I think he's gonna be able to clip him. I don't know. He just has not been looking great in his last couple of fights. He was undefeated, but I think he's gonna get the finish in this one.
There we go. Yes, on to the Alan Piper fight. That's the one we're doing. I think you make a lot of good points, Tori. Number one, looking at Allen, dude's a headhunter. It's what he
Yes,
does. He's got a
1,000.
lot of power. He's got that knockout power. Uh, he's not a good grappler either. So it's his key to win is definitely get that knockout. He's got 3 losses in UFC. One by submission, one by knockout, one by decision. He's got
Yeah,
all 3 ways you can lose. He's got them besides like a DQ. Um, Looking at Piper, he suffered an injury in his first Dana White Contender Series fight.
in
It's like
in
I think it
a
was an
bad
elbow.
dislocated. So he was actually slammed. He dislocated his arm. Yeah.
Yeah, crazy stuff. And then he came back and like this past July, like late July, he came back and got a TKO. Super powerful striker, likes to chase the head. Also averages 2.73 takedowns a fight. But I mean, I think Joe's a more powerful striker here. If he needs to, he can take down Allen. If worse comes to worse, because Allen's really got a big hole in his wrestling game. Obviously, Allen's live for a knockout at any time. But I think Joe is better as long as he had enough time to recover. Because that's another one of these quick turnaround times. Late July to now. Dude could still might be hungover for all I know.
Yeah.
So hopefully he got enough recovery time. But I'm gonna go with Joe here as well.
Yeah, and I'm not sure when this was. I don't know if it was his last fight or 2 fights ago. Piper also actually tested positive for something, prohibited metabolite modulators, and was suspended for 9 months by the Nevada State Commission. I'm not sure when that was, but just to mention that on why he did have that layoff for a little bit. So that is definitely a little thing. But yeah, I'm gonna go Piper here. I think he can land it, and I think he's gonna finish Abdovsky and add another knockout to his unfortunately losing streak.
Yeah, I like Piper here too. Any MMA fighters listening, don't do drugs.
Just don't. Yeah.
Don't do. You get to fight more.
Yeah.
Don't do
Not a
drugs.
great look on you. But
So,
yeah.
I don't know, just a little bit of advice.
Just a little tip to help you in the future, you know.
That's about
So
all I can give you. I can't really
yeah.
give you anything else, but I can tell you not to do drugs.
Yeah. It's a
So
good point.
on to the next fight that I tried to do early. Andre Fili versus Bill Algeo. A really cool name. Tori,
Yes.
give me a breakdown on this fight.
So this is going to be a featherweight fight, and right off the bat, it's going to be very competitive. We have Fili, who is 29-0, 9-3 with knockouts, 3-2 submissions, 1-4 in his past 5 fights. Last fight was a loss by a round 1 knockout to Brito, and then we have Algeo, 16-6, 4-0 in knockouts, 6-2 submissions, 3-2 in his last fights, and then I believe 1-4 in his last 5 fights. So yeah. First off, with Fili, he has fought kind of everyone. I mean, he has lost to Holloway, he's lost to Yair Rodriguez, he's lost to
Mhm.
Cater, he's lost to Michael Johnson, he's lost to Yusuf, and he's also lost to Mitchell. All these over the time, a long time span, because this man was in the UFC since 2013. So he did fight Holloway in his second fight. And then he has wins over Charles Jourdain, which was his last win, I believe, in 2020. Moraes, who was in 2019. Bermudez 2018. Benitez 2015. And Larson 2013. This man is a veteran. He has fought everyone. He's fought every style. And then we have Algeo, who was a Cage Warriors champion, but in 2019 he was on Dana White Contender Series, but he did lose. And so for this fight, I think I'm going to go Algeo by decision. I don't think he's necessarily going to knock Fili out, but I just think he's a faster paced striker. He has a very interesting karate style stance. He has high output, good defense. He's kind of a dirty boxer. He's BJJ black belt. He's durable and he's always moving forward. And then we have Fili, who has fought better competition. He's very well rounded, but he hasn't had the best matchmaking in his career. He is pretty good at wrestling, but he does get hit often and he relies on his chin a lot, which is starting to fade. So I think we can go Algeo by decision.
Yeah, I agree. You talk about Andre, averages 2 takedowns a fight. Good, well-rounded guy, like you said. He's a team alpha male guy. Had a lot of hard fights in UFC. Then you look at Bill, fast striker, great cardio, good defense, has almost like 6 strikes per minute. BJJ black belt, and he's been a beast pretty recently. Algeo's Algeo's the pick. Great speed, great cardio. Feel like it's gonna get to Andre. I don't know. I feel bad for Andre, because I really think UFC threw him into the dogs. He was supposed to be, Team Alpha Male's next guy. Like they were
Yeah.
like, this is gonna be our next champ right here, and their UFC was like, okay, prove it, and he struggled. And obviously there is something to be said about guys who fought a lot of good competition and lost, and then can beat a guy like Bill Algeo.
Yeah.
But there's also something to be said about a guy who's lost a lot of fights to really good guys, and it really does something to them. It hurts their self esteem, makes them a little worse of a fighter too, just by the damage they've taken in. And there is something to be said about your Amanda Nunes situations, your Kamaru Usman situations, where you win for so long that you got to lose to get one back. But when you just lose and lose and
Yeah.
lose and lose, it's like hard to get that motivation.
Yeah. 1000%.
Um, so I mean, I don't have much to say on this fight, but I'm going Algeo. Good speed, good
Yeah.
cardio, fast striker.
Yeah. And I
Must
do want to
pick.
correct myself on one thing. I did say 1-4. I did not mean to say 1-4. I reread my other one. He is 3-2 in his last 5 fights. That was my bad. 2 fight win streak. So
There you go.
doing a lot better than I said. But yeah, he's just younger. He's quicker. He's definitely newer contender. And so I don't know. It's just these older guys. Once again, they're just in the sport for so long when sometimes they shouldn't be in the sport anymore. So I mean, we'll see. It'll be interesting, but I'm gonna go Algeo.
There you go. Next fight, co-main event of the Sandhagen Yadong fight night card, UFC 60, Vegas 60, whatever you want to call it. We got Chidi Najen Kawani.
Believe that's a hard name. That one
Najen
might be the
Kawani.
hardest one.
Najen
Yeah,
Kawani. That's how you say it. Versus
Najen Kawani.
Gregory Rodriguez. Yeah, right? Gregory.
Yes.
So, Tori, who do you have in this fight?
For this fight, I have, I believe it's Jungwani. You know what? I'm gonna say Chidi. I have
Okay.
Chidi
GD.
by I said round two knockout. I mean, he is 22 and 7, 14 and 3 knockouts, 1 and 3 with submissions, and 4 and 1 in his last fights. These two kind of have fairly similar records, and we have Rodriguez 12 and 4, 7 and 2 with knockouts, 3 and 0 with submissions, 4 and 1 in his last 5 fights. So Rodriguez is a heavy grappler, and Chidi's a heavy striker, and that's kind of their strong points. He's on a 4-fight. Chidi's on a 4-fight win streak. He fought in Bellator for a couple of years when I was on Dana White's contender series in 2021. And then we have Rodriguez, who last loss was by split decision. He was on Dana White contender series in 2020, but he did lose. And he is the former LFA champion. And I believe he is on a little bit of a win streak as well right now. And so both of these fighters are amazing, but I think Chidi is just going to kind of output Rodriguez. I mean, he hits very hard. He's a good striker. He has speed and power on his side, moves very well. People always have a hard time getting to him, and I just think he's going to outstrike him in general. Rodriguez has good volume. He's well rounded. He's a black belt in jiu-jitsu, good takedown defense, but he likes to keep the fight on the feet. And then he is very big with power and strength. And if he wants to work in takedowns, I think he can get the win. But his biggest thing is how slow he moves. He moves a little sluggish. I think that's going to be the big difference. And so because of that, I'm going to go Chidi. Yeah, I'm going to go Chidi by round 2 finish,
There you
whatever it
go.
is.
Yeah, very good breakdown. You mentioned Chidi striking. He has really good footwork, is something that I noticed in watching a lot of his fights, and that has something to say about his fast-paced striking style. On top of that, he hits really hard. Another good thing, he helps keep his fights on the feet. Averages 76% takedown defense. Looking at Gregory, very accurate striker. Throws with a lot of power. BJJ black belt has 100% takedown defense.
Yes.
But your biggest critique is my biggest critique. He's slow. And not only that, but he kind of wears himself out. And that's going to be with anybody who throws with the intention to always knock out. If that's how you're throwing your strikes, you will wear yourself out. So on top of him wearing himself out, he's also very slow. Whereas Chidi has great cardio, and he's still a really hard striking guy, and he's fast.
Yes.
So it makes it
yeah.
it makes it an easy pick for me. Now the odds are a lot closer. The odds are negative 125 to positive 105, which is kind of it's a pick 'em, right? But
Yes,
to me,
1000%,
I think it's a pretty simple fight to go with Nijen Kawani here.
yeah.
I don't know. I just think he's a lot better. Obviously, if Gregory can get him to the ground, it's over. He will win by wrestling, by Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. He'll get a submission. Don't think it's gonna happen.
Yeah, I mean, Chi does have great takedown defense, and he also has pretty okay ground game. So maybe you never know. He could wiggle out of it if he does get taken down. But overall, I think the better fighter is going to be Chidi.
Yeah, 100%. On to our main event, a fight that I'm pretty excited for, Tori. I think this will be fight of the night, which is fitting for the fight night main event. Yeah. But we got Cory Sandhagen versus Song Yadong. Tori, give me your breakdown, your final prediction.
I am very excited for this fight just because Cory Sandhagen is one of my favorite bantamweights and one of my favorite fighters. And then he's also fighting Song Yadong, who is a newer, upcoming, very, very young, not even newer upcoming. He's just so young. It's crazy that he's had this many fights.
24
record. That is insane. And so we have Sandhagen, who's 14 and 4, 6-0 with knockouts, 3-1 submissions, and then 2 and 3 in his last 5 fights. Then we have Yadong, who is 19 and 6, which he is almost way younger than Cory, and he has a lot more fights on his record, which is insane. 8 and 1 with knockouts, 3-0 with submissions, and 4 and 1 in his last 5 fights. I mean, he's on a 3-fight win streak. He has a win against Chito Vera in 2020, a win against Phillips in 2021, and Ars in 2021 as well. His last loss, his last loss was to Phillips by unanimous decision. And I mean, he's one of the youngest fighters on the roster. And it's just, it's crazy that he just has held this many fights at this age. Some people that we see, like Cyril Gahn, doesn't even have that many fights, and he's fighting for a title. But I mean, there are two strikers. It's going to be an exciting fight no matter what. And they are two of the most exciting fighters in the division. We have Cory Sandhagen, good cardio, very active with power, very fast and fluid, throws very good combos, athletic and tough. Championship quality. I mean, it is sad because we did see him lose to that interim title bout against Petr Yan last year in Abu Dhabi, but that was such a close fight. Props to him. He did take that on short notice. He also did lose to TJ Dillashaw, which I personally don't agree with, but that's a whole another situation. But I mean, Cory Sandhagen, no matter his record, he's an amazing dude. He does have the height and reach advantage by a good amount, and I think his movement's going to be a big problem for Yadong. I mean, Yadong, good technical striker, also moves fast, is athletic, hits very hard for his size. 50% of his wins are by knockout, and he does have the power advantage in the striking, but he doesn't fight like an experienced fighter. He doesn't fight like the experienced fighter Cory is. Doesn't have great submission defense, which Sandhagen does have the capability to take it on the ground. He does have some submissions on his record, and he leaves a lot of openings for him to be hit. So I mean, I'm overall, I don't think it's going to be a finish. I'm going to go with Sandhagen by decision. Some things I am a little bit nervous is when Cory fights someone who is similar to him. It takes him a while to get into it. So I'm scared he might lose a couple of the first rounds and then really start to pick up on the later ones just because he has that 5-round championship experience. But overall, I just think he's cleaner, and I think he's more well-rounded. So I'm going to go Sandhagen.
There you go. Good breakdown, Tori. Cory is just a tough fighter. I mean, he's just a tough dude. He's got some tough losses. Petr Yan, TJ Dillashaw, Aljamain Sterling. He's got really deceiving power. Throws a lot of different combos, like you said. Good strikes, good leg kicks. Likes to keep pressure. Not crazy volume striking all the time, though. He also has BJJ when he wants to use it. You look at Song Yadong, fast, athletic, technical striker, throws punches, and he likes to look for a knockout a lot. He's got a win over Cheeto Vera, like you said, 3-fight win streak. Lost to Kyler Phillips, and he lost to Kyler Phillips by wrestling. And the Matrix, obviously, very good wrestler. But he did lose by wrestling in that fight. He's 24 years old. It's crazy.
That's crazy. He still has so much time.
Yeah.
Too.
And Tori, this is a hard fight to pick.
It's very hard
because I can see the upset here. I can see Song winning. He's got a lot of power. He strikes really fast. I mean, if it goes to decision, who throws more punches, right? Like, I don't know if I see Cory throwing more punches than Song does. Cory doesn't get finished. So I think Song's key to win is by knockout.
But that Cory's only been finished once by submission by Aljo, the champ.
He doesn't get finished, right? So it's tough.
Never know, though. I mean, could get cracked. MMA, so you never know, but I don't know.
I am gonna pick Song Yadong here. I think if it does go the distance, I will see Cory winning it. But dude, Song Yadong's no joke. And you mentioned how many fights he already has on his fighting career. And you talk about a guy like Cory who has 5-round experience. I mean, you could argue Song Yadong's got more experience than Cory Sandhagen in a sense that he's fought more. Not that he has the UFC experience that Cory does, because he doesn't. But my big thing here is I can see Song Yadong fighting a lot like Petr Yan. Whereas, they kind of have a lot of the same style of fighting on how they strike, except Song Yadong's younger and has more power. So that's why I'm picking Song Yadong. I think that Cory is a way better striker. Definitely overall a better MMA fighter. But in this fight, I'm going to take Song Yadong.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm going to have to disagree with you on that one. I mean, you can have multiple fights under your record, but can you have multiple fights that match up to you fighting TJ Dillashaw for 5 rounds, Petr Yan for 5 rounds?
I agree.
It's just, it is a very hard fight to pick. I mean, I also think a key for Cory is to take it down to the ground. Not great submission defense, and I think he could get a win on the ground. Cory can finish him in multiple ways if he wanted to. Yadong's been finished before. It's on his record. And so I think he can get it done. I don't necessarily think Song's going to knock Cory out. If the only thing that scares me if it does go to decision, I said I might have Cory by decision, is Cory can be a slow starter, like I said previously, especially with people of similar style. So it takes him a while to get that timing right, to get in those combos and just kind of get flown around and get his movement back. But I mean, he uses that space between him and his opponents very well, and he's just bigger. And yeah, I think this is going to be my locked pick of the night. One locked pick of the night is Cory.
Yeah, it's a hard pick for me to pick Yadong.
Yeah,
I just think
it's a hard, yeah.
he is the trend in UFC right now has been guys that are really hot, young, dominate. And I think that's kind of Yadong. And I think Cory's really good. And it kind of upsets me because I really like Cory. Hot take, I do actually think that TJ Dillashaw did beat him, but don't hate me in the
It's okay.
comments because most
Okay.
people do not like that take.
It depends on how you score fights.
Sure, sure.
It was a hard fight to choose.
But either way, Cory's tough. I mean, that's my biggest thing about him. He's tough. On top of his great combos and his deceiving power, he looks like he might just be throwing a regular one, but that one might knock you. So I don't know, but I am gonna go with Song Yadong here.
Yeah. Now, quick question: what does the UFC do with the winner of this fight?
Bro, that's a great question. So looking at Cory Sandhagen, he is currently fourth in the standings, and Song Yadong is 10th. So a win over Cory, I think, would be pretty big.
It's
I
almost
don't
like the
know.
Hamzat versus Burns situation.
Yeah, for sure. I don't know where you send him though. Like, there's a lot of openings now.
I mean, we have TJ versus Aljo for the title, Piotr versus Sean. And I think Cheeto and Marab are waiting to fight the winner or losers of those fights. So I think maybe the loser of any of those fights is going to take this one. I mean, you never know.
Yeah, but I definitely. I mean, the thing is, Tori, and I was gonna get to this is if Song Yadong loses, not worried at all. If he
No.
loses to Cory Sandhagen, I can still see Song Yadong being champ one day,
Yeah.
depending on how he plays out in his career.
And even
So,
if he loses in I always say this, even if he loses, it's a very competitive fight. He's going to earn the respect of a lot of people.
yep, 100%. So this fight doesn't bother me if you're a Song Yadong fan. He's going to be all right either way, no matter where he goes. He'll probably stay in the top 15, even if he loses. So
Yeah.
it's good enough, right?
Yeah.
So, dang, Tori, we disagreed a lot. But this
I
is,
know.
I mean,
Yeah.
these fight night cards are hard to predict sometimes. They are.
Yeah. These are very
Uh,
much how you just watch fight. It's almost like what you enjoy. You know what I mean? It's just with these pick'em fights, it's just what you kind of want to see win or what you really think. These are hard ones to pick.
yeah, they definitely are.
That's exciting. I like these rather than one sided.
No, I do too. And I
Okay.
like it because I'm not emotionally involved in any of these fighters. Not that I'm not a fan of some of these fighters, but it's not like Francis Ngannou or Cyril Gane tied to Ivasa, where I'm like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, this hurts my heart. I like Cory Sandhagen. I like Song Yadong. I like them both, but none of them are my favorite fighters. If they're your favorite fighters, let me know in the comments. But for me, it's like I just get to sit back and enjoy all these
Enjoy.
fights that
Stress
I'm not
free.
really, yeah, I'm not emotion. I mean, obviously, I want to be right in my predictions, but besides that, I just want to watch some good fights. So it's
Yeah.
always nice with these fight nights to get that. Troy, we were talking about bantamweights, and I think you were kind of throwing it to me. We're gonna talk about our top five bantamweights of all time to wrap it up, and I thought it was a pretty good question. So I'll let you go first from 5 to 1. Who are your top five bantamweights of all time?
Alrighty. So at number five, I'm gonna have Cody Garbrandt, the first man to figure out Dominic Cruz when he was in his prime. He was on his prime. I mean, I believe knocking out TJ Dillashaw. I forgot if that was a finish, but yeah, I mean, man was unstoppable. Unfortunately, now we'll see. But I mean, he's gonna go down as one of the best bantamweights of all time. Number four, I have Piotr Jan. I mean, for a while, this man was very dominant. He still is. I mean, that loss to Aljo, some people could argue. I think Aljo won. Some people could argue that that Jan won. But I mean, also Yeah.
Mhm.
But you could argue it either way. And I mean, this man did dominate the top in the division for a little bit. And then so at number 3, TJ Dillashaw. I mean, don't love to put him there just because of the whole situation going on, but I
Right.
mean, he definitely does deserve to be on the list. And then we have number 2, Renan Burrow. I mean, this man was almost undefeated for a decade. He is a legend, kind of the foundation of the division. And so him, and then at number 1, we have D Cruz, Dominic Cruz. I mean, the most dominant bantamweight of all time, the most tricky bantamweight of all time. Just one of the best mixed martial artists and one of the most entertaining guys we've ever seen. So that's my list.
Good list, Tori. I have a very, very, very similar list. All the same fighters on my list, just a different order. Cody Garbrandt, one of my favorite fighters of all time. He's in my top 5 of all time favorite fighters. I told you this on FaceTime the other day that when Cody Garbrandt fought Dominic Cruz, in that moment, I think he was the greatest bantamweight fighter of all time. That he was fighting, spoiler alert, my number 1, Dominic Cruz, best bantamweight of all time, and he's dancing and striking him.
Yeah. It was
Best
crazy.
bantamweight of all time in that moment. I
Yeah.
love it. Number 2, as my boy Sean O'Malley would say, Peter Yan, or as it's supposed to be pronounced, Piotr Yan. I mean, Piotr Yan's good, and he's kind of, if I were to describe a bantamweight, I would kind of describe him like Piotr Yan.
Yeah. He
Um,
has the best, in my opinion, the best boxing in the sport.
yeah, I
The
mean,
most
yeah,
clean, like
beautiful.
crisp, like boxing.
Yeah,
Not kickboxing, but just yeah.
yeah, for sure. And at number 3, I have Renan Barrow there. Obviously, legend of the weight class and UFC in general. Number
Yeah.
2, I put DJ there. So like I really like TJ Dillashaw a lot too. Even though I am a huge Cody Garbrandt fan, so it's kind of interesting, I guess. But it is hard to kind of put him up there because of what's happened. But
Yeah.
despite all of that, he has proven to be great for a long time. And the
Exactly.
fact that people still don't really know who they're picking in him in the Aljo fight, at least I don't.
I don't I have a very slight pick.
Yeah,
Slight.
it says a lot. It says a lot about him. So I'm gonna go TJ 2, and then number 1, the GOAT, Dominic Cruz
First.
of the bantamweight division. I mean, there's not much to say about Cruz. He was just so good.
Yeah. And just so took people forever until obviously Cody to figure him out. No one could. He
Yeah,
defeated everyone.
yeah. So that is my top 5. Same top 5. Just
Different
switch a
order.
little bit. And that has been it for episode 5 of the Not Your Everyday MMA podcast. Tori, where can people listen to the audio only version of our podcast?
People can listen to it on Spotify and now on Apple Podcasts.
Mm-hmm.
Very
Mm-hmm.
exciting. So, I mean, if you're not a Spotify user, you should be because I love Spotify. Listen to it on Apple Music.
Yes.
Anyway,
Yes.
and on YouTube.
We are on both. And obviously, if you're new here, we appreciate the support. We got a lot of subscribers recently, a lot of views on our last video.
Thank you guys so
Sure,
much.
that's probably going to go down on the fight night card, but that's okay. To the ones who stick around, we appreciate you. And yeah, keep showing love, keep commenting. We want to see those. And that has been it for episode 5 of the Not Your Everyday MMA podcast. My name's Alex Henry, and I've been with,
Tori Haverl. Thank you
and
guys.
we are signing off.